Hello YouTube, Mr. Miz here. I'm down looking at the Allegheny River near Pittsburgh, well, in Pittsburgh I guess. And as a fairly traditional Catholic, one of the things that most annoyed me during the pontificate of Pope Francis was that he would often speak in a very imprecise manner. So much so that it came to be termed weaponized ambiguity. And what I mean by this is, while not directly expressing any heterodox or heretical things, he would speak in such an imprecise manner that it would allow liberal bishops to engage in borderline to outright heterodox or heretical actions and seem to be covered by him. Now, in a similar fashion, we get the same thing somewhat from Donald Trump, which is unfortunate because I very much like Donald Trump otherwise. In his case, it's not so much ambiguity as it is fecklessness. He changes his mind all the time, it seems like. Now, not all of this is his fault. Almost every time he tries to do something, you'll get some federal judge that was venue shopped who will find some way, no matter how legally dubious it may be, to impose a nationwide injunction, and essentially you have one federal judge setting the entire domestic policy of the United States, which, you know, seems somewhat anti-democratic to me, but what the hell would I know? But far more importantly, recently, was the Ukrainian attack using drones against Russia's strategic bombers. Now, this attack had been planned, as we're told, for over a year, possibly up to 18 months. And Trump has been largely silent on this. Now, this is a real problem. The reason for this is that those strategic bombers represent one leg of Russia's nuclear triad. If you're not familiar, a nuclear triad, and give me a sec, let's take a look at this helicopter if I can find it. There it is. Alrighty. Always fun to see a helicopter. But in any case, those strategic bombers represent one leg of Russia's nuclear triad. And what that is a combination of land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched intercontinental ballistic missiles, and then land-based bombers that are capable of delivering nuclear weapons over intercontinental distances. So basically, they have the range to hit the United States. Now, why is this important? Well, any country would tend to view an attack upon its strategic infrastructure as a major escalation of a war. And while I get that the Ukrainians don't exactly appreciate having these bombers also being used to deliver cruise missiles that are conventionally armed against their citizens in their country, the fact that we're financing them and arming them means that we should have put a stop to this. Now, there's a couple of things that might explain how this came to pass. Maybe our intelligence agencies genuinely didn't know that this was coming, in which case they are negligent to the point of criminality and should all be fired, at the very least, and potentially put on trial. There's the possibility that they simply didn't tell Trump, perhaps wanting to give him some means of plausible deniability, or perhaps just because they didn't think that he should know. Well, if that's the case, they have essentially set foreign policy for the United States over and above the president, who is not only the one who is supposed to, be setting U.S. foreign policy, but is also actually elected by the people, unlike these bureaucrats. Now, the third possibility is that Trump knew that this was coming and green-lighted it, in which case that was a profound mistake on his part. If I'm Russia, I find it very difficult to believe that this was not a direct attack upon my ability to project and deter nuclear attack done by the United States, potentially with, almost certainly with British involvement, through the proxy of Ukraine. And I'll be honest, I'm not unhappy that this didn't happen, but I am stunned that Kiev didn't end up getting nuked. And frankly, if the Russians do it, it still would not surprise me. I hope they don't. But this kind of escalation is extremely dangerous, and I don't see what possible benefit there could be from it unless you're one of these absolute lunatics that wants to end civilization completely. So certainly I would hope that we can see a peaceful resolution to the Ukrainian-Russian war. I don't see that happening anytime soon. The day after this attack, the Ukrainians met the Russians in Istanbul, and the first thing that they put on the table as a negotiation point was that they would be free to join NATO. Trump needs to get off of social media, and he needs to start talking directly to Putin and completely bypassing Ukraine, because really, again, they're a proxy. If we don't support them, they will collapse. He needs to start talking to Putin, and we need to come up with some kind of, treaty with the Russians whereby we're going to probably have to recognize Russian gains in Ukraine, as well as refuse to even contemplate the idea of letting Ukraine join NATO. We played a proxy war. We are losing that proxy war, and it's time we got out. We should never have been in it to begin with. We are just slightly behind Putin himself in being responsible for this war, having largely provoked it over decades. And if this goes sideways, it could end in a massive exchange between the United States and Russia of nuclear weapons that will devastate both our countries and essentially end us as nation states. So call your congressman, I guess, for what good that might do, and pray for peace, because this is not sustainable, and the longer this goes on, the more likely it is that we are going to see dramatically horrific consequences. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.